Hello, everyone. Hello, our listeners, viewers on all platforms, including TikTok and upcoming Twitter as well. My name is Jenya. It's hard to actually describe myself in one sentence, but let me tell you my story. I'm just an IT entrepreneur, I would say, and IT guy that lives in Spain and loves this country as well, and want to share more about not only the culture, but also about the IT landscape, tech landscape, and educational as well, because I believe that education is the key for any entrepreneurship that we have. And today we have an awesome guest with a very interesting story, and the story of our guest lies in educational dimension, I would say. So, Sinéad Galvin, welcome to the podcast. Very warm welcome to our recording today.
Thank you so much, Jenya. I hope I can impress after such a great introduction. But thank you for inviting me.
It's pleasure, and I believe that the best way to introduce the guest is to give this opportunity to the guest. So please tell us about your story generally, and also specifically how did it happen? We are speaking today in Madrid. Lots of turns and rounds.
Lots of turns, and if I chose that term, maybe something else would have happened. So, as you said, my name is Sinead. I am an educational consultant. I'm a mom of 3, and I'm Irish. So, I first came to Spain when I was 19. I was with a program with the government in Ireland to learn Spanish language. I went to Granada for 3 months, and I thought it was spectacular. Then I went on to Ibiza. I stayed there for almost a year and really traveled for quite a while, went to other countries. And then eventually, as a mature student, which was 23, I went back to Ireland and I did my primary degree in history and Hispanic studies. There, I started learning more about Spanish culture, Hispanic culture. I really fell more in love with the country. And when I finished my degree, I did a teaching certificate and I came back to Spain. And because I'd lived in other parts of Spain, I decided I would come to Madrid for a few months to see what it was like as the capital city, and then I would leave. And now, almost 20 years later, I'm still here in Madrid. But I did leave, but I came back. But and I think you'll find this as well. And yeah, it sucks you in. You think you're not going to stay, but it has this.
From the first time I entered Madrid, I understand that this is a city that's very close to me by mindset, by architecture, by way of living, by, I don't know, you feel this mood of the city.
I remember being really surprised by all the statues of horses. There's so many. But it's got a lot more than that. There's a lot more to the city. So I started initially, I was teaching English, but going from teaching business English in different companies. And it was almost soul destroying. It's when employees are made to take English lessons during lunchtime. Nobody wants to do it. You've got to go there all on your own. And I did that for a little while. I did different things. Eventually, I did a master's in marketing here in Madrid, in EdTech. And then through my master's, then I started working in multinational companies in brand marketing. And I loved it. And then I met who's now my husband. I met him in Madrid and we went to London. I had a lot of job opportunities and stayed in London initially for 1 year, ended up being 5 years. And my eldest daughter was born in London. So then when she was born, I came back to Madrid because I thought quality of life would be easy. It would be easier with kids to live in Madrid. But then the awful thing, and this is one of the drawbacks of Spain, the long working hours. You work a lot in Spain. The hours are a lot longer in comparison, say, somewhere like London, where the days are shorter. And I wanted to spend time with my child. I wanted to work, but I wasn't able to make brand marketing and that work. So I went back to teaching English again. And then I got very lucky. And I began working in a project with the British Council and La Comunidad de Madrid. And then I went back to teaching English, but within public schools in the city, which was a much more enriching experience because I was with the kids all through the year. I saw the same kids. You saw how they improved, or you were given time to build a relationship with the kids. So I did this for about 3 years. And then during this time, I realized that there really was a big need, that so many of my friends, foreign friends, but also Spanish friends, asking, how does it work? How do you know how to apply to the school? How does the application process work? Etc., etc. And that's when I thought, maybe there's an opportunity. And I've never set up my own business. I'd never worked for myself. And I set up 7 steps into Spain. So an education consultancy to help families find the right school for their child, but to also simplify the application process and try and make the process just that little bit less stressful, because it is a stressful process, and to help families to find the right school here in Madrid. And that was back in 2020. And here I am talking to you.
Sounds really interesting. And for me, as a person without children, as of now, I would say that this is not obvious problem. Like, unless you have children that needs to go to school, you don't know that this is a problem. Actually,
you don't even notice playgrounds, anything, nothing.
You remember like, I went to school. I don't remember any problems with that. Okay, like, but then I realized that it could be a problem. And also, one question during your journey, it's interesting. Why you found Madrid is easier to live with kids than London?
Probably cost. Madrid is a lot cheaper than, it's more reasonable. Still expensive, but it's not as expensive as London. Plus, my husband's family live here, and we mistakenly, I say this because they don't speak English. We thought that they would help, but they didn't. But that's okay. We've been able to get people that would help us. Also, in London, my family are in Ireland, his family are in Spain. A lot of the things that we could do in London, like going to live gigs, it was a lot of the things that we could do, we weren't able to do once we had a child. All of my friends were here in Madrid. A lot of them are already having babies, and it just seemed the logical thing to do.
I can relate, but it's interesting that in my imagination, Spanish. Your husband is Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm. From Madrid.
Spanish family, Spanish family shall help with children. Like they love them. Like that's so interesting. But it's really interesting, like that they didn't.
They didn't, but you know what? I think, and at the beginning I was surprised, but I think in the end it's worked out okay, because we've been able to. I think it's a big difference, but say between Spain and Madrid and London, it's a lot easier to get staff to, or not staff, but a childminder here in Madrid. It's more accessible than it would be in London. So we have people to help us. There's one particular lady helping us at the moment. She's amazing. And it means that you don't have to ask favors from my in-laws.
Sounds very familiar. I mean, like in Russia, for example, we have this culture of caring, like when about children is like grandparents take care of children, but I believe this more relates to real estate question, because still, even nowadays, a lot of people live in one apartment or in very, like not separately, because of the prices for real estate as well, and opportunities for this. And if you have this opportunity, in most cases, you're not supported. But we have this kind of culture, and it's interesting thing how we met here. I would say that we would like to thank our previous guest, and she approved to tell her story today.
Good.
So go on.
My crazy Russian German clients.
Yeah, because in our podcast, sorry to interrupt you, in our podcast we discussed that she reviewed like 30 schools or something like that in Madrid. And I was like, sorry, 3 or 30? You mean like 30, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, 30.
But that's the thing. It's quite common. I mean, for a family, when you're moving to another country, even if you're in the same country, but I think especially when you're moving to another country, if the school doesn't work out, And it just becomes a nightmare for the family, because if your child's unhappy, then everybody's going to be unhappy. And if you get that part of the school that it's right, everything else will flow from there. So even though, Eugenia, it sounds incredible that 30 schools, a lot of families do that amount of research. It's a big planning exercise. I mean, when families get in contact with me, they've been thinking about this move usually for at least a year, if not even longer. And Madrid, in one side, it's great. It's got so many schools. There's so many different options, but that also makes making that decision really difficult, because like, is this the right one? Maybe the other one. So yeah, when I met Eugenia, she'd already started her research. Then she was well through her research, but at that point, she had really thought that what she was thinking was a private school for her son. So here in Madrid, we've got 3 types of schools. You've got a state school, which is Los Públicos. You've got the private schools, which can be international schools. And then we've got these ones in between that's called concertado. So these are semi-private schools. So they're private schools and they're subsidized by the state. But they follow the same as the public school. So Eugenio, what she wanted was a school that was strong in languages and that would properly support her son. And this is a big concern of any family that's moving if they don't really speak the language, especially if they don't speak the language. But even if they do, you want to know, my child's new. Please look after them. Please make sure they have a nice day, because, and then you feel a lot better as a parent.
Nobody will take lunch money
Exactly.
in the yard, in the school
Be
yard.
nice to them. Please be nice to them. Hug them and care for them. So when I met Eugenia, she was going with private schools, and listening to her and listening to what she was particularly looking for, I suggested that she goes with a different type of school. And especially as well, she had specific criteria, not just that it was an international school, it was languages, but there was other location, what specific things for her son. So I recommended that she go with another type of school, which is called the concertado school, which has got a different application process. It's more complicated, but I was able to help her through that. And that's where her son is now. And she's very, very happy. He's very happy at the school.
That's
so
true.
Mama's very happy with the school.
And could you bring some light to the picture, like how educational system actually for this middle education, let's say, is set up in Spain, and what is important to understand? Maybe you can compare also with the general European practice or UK practice, what you have in mind.
With the concertado schools or in general?
Like in general, like
Okay.
how you already told us about the 3 types of schools, but maybe also like application process, how it looks like, and what the difference between them, and what is the best fit for one or another scenario.
Okay. That's like that
It's
$1 million question. What's the best school? It depends. But the application process is different here compared to other countries, but as well as not just different in Madrid compared to other countries, it's different in Madrid compared to Barcelona. Because education, obviously education is managed by the national government, but then each of the regional governments manage their education system. So it tends to be different between one comunidad and the other, of course, to make it more complicated.
We're in Spain.
We're in Spain. And they like to make it a little bit more complicated for everybody. But there's one big thing that's a difference between, say, Spain compared to the UK, US, Ireland, outside Ireland, because I'm Irish. The application date. So in Ireland or the UK or the US, it's based on kids start school and the cutoff date says August. They must be 5 years of age by August. But in Spain, it's based on the year of birth. So all kids that were born in the same year will be in the same class group. And that works okay until it goes to August or September. But kids that move to Spain that were born in October in the UK or October in the US and they want to go to a Spanish school, they usually have to move up a grade, which it makes it a little bit complicated for families.
I am October guy,
Yeah.
so I can imagine.
Yeah. My kids are all November and December babies, so they're all the youngest in the class, which I didn't realize at the time. A surprise.
And, could you please elaborate more? Like, okay, this is application process that based on birth dates, and what are the differences? Maybe how this application process looks like, because I can't imagine actually how it looks like. Like, what is it? You need to put like your name, ubicación,
Ubicación.
dirección.
It's not even ubicación. Okay, so There's different, say the private schools, the international schools, they're a little bit easier. You can apply from overseas. You've got to send your school reports. You'll do an interview, an admissions test, but it's pretty straightforward. What managed by the Spanish government is not as straightforward. So that's the public schools and the concertado. And for those, you do need to be living here, but it's not enough, say, to give my address. Say if it's a family that are moving over from Canada and they give my address, it's not enough. They have to be empadronado. Do you understand? You know what a padronado is?
Yeah.
But say for anybody that doesn't know, what it means is that it's like registering in your census in the city hall. So once you have your rental lease, your contract, which has to be a minimum of 6 months, or your work contract, you bring that to the town hall and you're registered. And once you have that registration and empadronamiento, you can apply to the schools. But without that, you can't do it.
Yeah, it's a very it's not complicated process actually, but you need to know how to do it, and you need also digital signature, I believe, or something like that.
You do. If you do have that, it's easier, but you can do it without it. So in that part, it's not so difficult. But then there's a regular application process, which will start in March. It's open for 2 weeks. It's for the following September. But a lot of families that will relocate to Spain, they don't make the March application because they're waiting for schools to finish in their own country. So then they'll do, and then they'll do the late application process. And the late application process has different requirements to the regular application process. And there's different restrictions. But there's something that's important. And maybe this podcast and maybe speaking to you might help make this. I've tried to broach this problem, but I haven't had a lot of feedback. Or I haven't had a response from La Comunidad de Madrid. So families, for the late application process, they can apply for the first 2 weeks of July if they're here living in Madrid. And if they miss that, then they have to do it on the 1st of September. And the office closes between July and September. It opens on the 1st of September. And then it's open from there onwards. And what happens? For the 1st of September, there's a big backlog of any family that's moving to Madrid and is looking for a school. And each year, you've got to go to what's called the education office, el Servicio de Apoyo Escolar. And in the last 5 years, these offices, there are less offices. They keep on reducing the number of offices and the number of families, because we're always told Madrid is booming, it's booming.
Yes,
so there are more families and more families. The office it's overrun with people. They can't deal with, and they're really good at the office. They're really efficient, but it's impossible to cope with the number of families. Last year, certain families, they slept overnight at the office to make sure that they were seen the following day. To get a school place in Madrid, a capital city in Europe, people are sleeping on the street overnight to be attended to, which seems shocking. It is shocking.
Oh my God.
I know. But I can't see that La Comunidad de Madrid, La Educación en Comunidad de Madrid, that they don't know this. I just think it's not seen as such a big problem.
I hope that they hear us today.
I hope that they do too. Here's hoping.
Okay. And this is like formal part, like application process.
Yep.
I believe that we will not cover all details right now, but generally speaking, it has some specifics. And of course, you need to be well prepared in that case as well, as with other things that you need to do when you move to Spain.
You need to bring a suitcase of documents with you for every appointment.
Yes, I know. I know
we all know.
By heart. We all know. And what about education as itself? Like, how do you find it? What's pros and cons education in Spain?
What are pros and cons? I think in certain ways, education in Spain, in some schools, in some of the Spanish schools, can still be a little bit kind of old-fashioned. In certain ways, it doesn't seem to have changed an awful lot since I went to school, which is a long time ago. And for that specific reason, 3 years ago, I moved my kids to a different school because I wanted them to learn in a more active way, that they weren't just learning by just listening to their teacher, they were learning by doing. And I think that's something in Spanish schools, it could get a lot better. It could improve upon.
It depends on type of school, or
it depends not necessarily. There can be private schools as well that seem to be quite old-fashioned, or seem to be very. I mean, one of the things with Spanish schools, and this is across the board, from about third grade, which is about 8 years of age, kids tend to start to get a lot of homework, and there are a lot of exams, like tests each week. They're 8 years of age. Spain doesn't do any. There's certain exam results. They're called PISA results, and it's kind of where you look at all the different countries and how they're doing in maths, etc. Spain doesn't stand out in any. It's not doing incredibly badly either. Kind of in the middle, but it seems to have a lot of pressure on kids to do things quite early, and I don't think it's of any benefit to the kids in the end.
I heard that in Finland, I'm very bad at educational questions. But what I heard so far, I mean, like, let's imagine that I'm our audience that is not aware of education at all. That in Finland, for example, they have a different approach to educational system. They have more like project-oriented, let's say, education, no marks, no scores, and etc. And it's very customized. So how it works in Spain, like tests, doesn't
the opposite. No, but that's not being fair, because the school that I've moved my kids to, it's very much like what they say in Finland. Finland is kind of seen as the utopia of what education should be like. Another interesting point about Finland, there are no private schools in Finland. All the schools are public, which is incredible. No, it makes everybody's on the same, it's a level playing field, whereas here it's not, or in most countries it's not. There are private schools and there are public schools. Here, it is based a lot on exams, and as the kids get older, there is a lot of pressure put on kids. But then there's a lot of pressure put on kids in Spain, and especially when they get to, say, teenagers, when their final 2 years of school, which is the bachillerato, to go on to university. There, the kids have to get very, very high scores to get into the public universities. But then compared to other countries, I would say China or Singapore, the pressure isn't as much here as it is over there. And I can see that even with some of my Chinese clients, when their kids are 3 or 4 years of age, they're already thinking, well, okay, what are the university destinations for, where do the kids graduate? Where do they go to? Most Spanish or European families, they don't ask that. Not when they do as the kids get older, but not from 3 years of age. So I do think there's pressure put on kids here, but then in comparison to probably Asian countries, there's a lot less pressure.
And education as itself, like maybe this kind of ranking, or like how good is education. And I know that all rankings are still subjective and depends on methodics that you use to make this ranking. But maybe Sinéad, you can tell us, like, what do you think about general level of education? Like, what, how does it compare with the European level, let's say, or like UK level, US level? What do you think about it?
US level, Spain's well able for US level. UK level, maybe something like reading isn't as high as it is in the UK. But then there are the ranking, say PISA ranking, Spain is very much, it's average. It doesn't stand out for being exceptionally good or stand out for being exceptionally poor. Something I have seen, say, with most of the families that I help, they come from, say, 95% of families from overseas. And a big percentage of that are American families. And a subject that American kids really struggle with here in Spain is math. They always assume that obviously Spanish language is going to be very difficult, because that obviously is for kids that don't speak Spanish. But math is quite difficult here in Spain compared to math in the US. It's seen, and this is from what my families tell me, is that it's a higher level. It's more advanced compared to math in the US.
And thank you for sharing that. And what about some specific things that we can notice if we, let's say, I have a child and I want them to go to the school? What some specific things? Because when I walked very close to the school, I see that there are a lot of. It looks a bit like a prison. From when you look from outside, it's like very well. It's very safe. It's secure. It's seguro.
That's to keep the teachers inside. Now, you know why that is? And it's quite sad. It's to make sure that people aren't outside the school gates taking pictures. It's quite sad. Before, say, schools were more open, or a kind of wire fence where that you could see in. And usually you can't see, and you can hear the children, and you definitely hear Spanish kids. And that was one of the things I noticed when I started teaching in schools here, is that, oh my goodness, the noise. And now I can see it with my own
not
kids.
Only children, not only children. Even if you have 2-3 persons in the office, you know that for sure. You know that, and you need a good headphones like you have.
Like mine, yes.
Yes.
But it's because of that. But then that's something that's interesting as well. I think that the Spanish kids, they definitely are in Spanish classrooms. They're more boisterous. It's not just in classrooms, in general, they're more boisterous. And sometimes, and I hear this quite a few times from my clients, that their children feel a bit, not afraid, but a bit overawed. That they feel that sometimes Spanish kids can be a little bit rough compared to the schools that they've come from in other countries.
Like what? I mean, like bullying?
Not rough as in bullying, but just like, hey, we're going to push into you, or you just... I can see, my kids are a bit like that as well. They kind of throw themselves.
No limits.
No limits.
No limits. Yeah. I believe that this is like, this is something that you need to accept if you move to Spain.
I think so too.
Like, no, the limit, when people suppose that they are too close to you, it's not something that you expect. I mean, like, this is not because they're rude or rough or something. They feel, and in Madrid, by the way, it's not so bad. I mean, like, in Madrid, it's still like a bit capital or something. And there are some distance. There is some distance, I would say. Depends on where you are. This distance will be tighter and tighter. And at some point, you can notice another person in your car just because it's very close to you. It tends to be close to you.
I think that's a good point, though. I do think when you move to another country, you need to embrace and obviously not to accept if you're really against something that the country is doing, but I think you've got to come with more of an open mind. Okay, this is different to what I'm used to, but just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. And I think that's something very important when people move to a new country.
Yeah. Specifically with children as well, because it's the additional level of complexity in your movement.
Yeah, it is a different level of complexity. I mean, that's why families, if they do work with me, that's usually why they do work with me. It's like, okay, I offer peace of mind or reassurance that I can tell them a little bit more about the schools, that, the websites, obviously a website is your shop window. You're going to say, I am amazing on my website. It can be very difficult in Spain, for schools at least. We don't really have any rankings, not objective rankings. The rankings are El Mundo, Forbes, and nobody really knows what are the metrics of these rankings, the criteria, or are they being sponsored by some of these schools that are appearing continuously on the top of the list? Could be, who knows? So yeah, it can be difficult. Families like to research, and it can be difficult to find that objective information.
That's why I made this podcast as well, because it's really hard to find information not only about schools but also about tech in Spain.
Yeah.
And what is happening in this landscape, IT environment, and cybersecurity field as well, and a lot of other topics that are that could be hardly investigated or discovered actually by even native speakers, not only and for sure by foreigners as myself. And one more thing, I heard some things about smartphones. Maybe you can tell us about what is happening there. Like, I mean, I heard that smartphones are banned. What's happening?
Officially, they are banned in the schools. I mean, you can see in any of the schools, you've got the sign that's, they can't use the phone. And then it comes down to a little bit, it depends. They're definitely bad. I mean, in primary age, you don't usually get a lot of kids with smartphones in primary. In primary here, it goes up to, say, 12 years of age. The difficult part is secondary, which is 4 years from 12 to 16, and then bachillerato, your final 2 years. What schools were noticing, not really so much in the classroom, but say when it was break time and all the kids are out in patio, they were all just on their phones, which does seem very, very sad. Where's banter or joking? So phones have been taken, you're not allowed to have a phone. And if you're found with your phone, it's confiscated. But a lot of the schools, they do make a little bit of an exception for the older kids for your final 2 years. But before they used to be very much, check on your phone if you're in class. Now it's not really done as much. It is seen as something that it's a little bit of a distraction. But there's some people are in favor of using your phones. Others say it's a terrible thing. It should be banned completely. I'm sure there's middle ground. Doesn't make sense to manage it, to ban it completely. It just needs to be used with common sense.
Actually, for me, as a person that always online, because I'm an IT specialist, I would say that that's a really interesting experience. Like, I believe that this has a lot of sense to limit the use of smartphones. It's just from my perspective, because I try to by myself to limit. I have a lot of like blocking apps, like focus mode and all that kind of stuff. And also I have ADHD. And that helps a lot actually with concentration as well, like not ADHD, but avoiding usage of my smartphone as well. But it's interesting that in Spain they went so far. I mean, like it's interesting.
I'm not sure if it is just Spain though. I think maybe parents or families or society in general is becoming more aware that there is an issue. And I mean, as an adult, I have to do like what you do. I have to stop myself picking up my phone. And I haven't grown up with a smartphone. This is something new for me. But a lot of these kids, they've grown up with things like this. A lot of the time before, when I visited schools, they were very proud of, we get children working with iPads when they're 3, because in Spain, kids generally start school when they're 3. That it was seen as something very positive. We're a Google school, we're an Apple school, we've got iPads when they're 3. Now I don't hear that as much. I do think there's been a pushback from parents, and obviously schools are pleasing parents or different. They're different people involved.
But to be pleased, there are different
exactly. You got to work in different ways and please everybody. But I do see parents pushing back more and not being as overawed that, oh wow, my children are working with iPads. I do think there's a concern that our kids are exposed to too many screens. We should embrace technology, but at the same time, we've got to be responsible.
In the light of this observation, actually, I would like to ask you about recent development of AI, because I use it a lot in my work. But how do you think AI influences the school education and children education? And it seems like to be much easier to make homework with AI.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, what is happening now, a lot of the time in the classroom, kids have to do their homework in the classroom. If it's a writing exercise, you do it in the classroom, you can't bring it home. Which makes sense, because if you bring it home, well, then AI is going to be there, your best friend, and it's going to help. But I think it's something that needs to be embraced. It's there. We all use it, and it does make our life, it helps us to, eventually probably might take all of our jobs, but at the moment, it's a helpful tool to use. And I know some of my teacher friends, they use it for class planning their lessons, which takes a lot of the time. Teachers, people a lot of the time criticize teachers saying, wow, they work 5 or 6 hours a day and that's it. And then they've got these holidays, but there's so much admin for teachers. They've got to prepare all those classes. There's grading. Homework. And now with AI, when they do use it, if it is used, it can be very, very helpful for obviously lesson planning, but also for personalizing learning, which I think is a big advantage. So I do think there's lots of ways that it can be used. And I know some parents use it as well. And I've used it as well with my kids at home with certain things, for homework, different examples, not, this is a worksheet, give me different worksheets. Instead of me having to find all this material, it's an easy source of finding material. But there are certain risks as well. It's not always that the information is correct. So it's using it responsibly.
But what it's interesting actually that Sinead is a bit a part of our discussion, but about just AI that taking jobs, I can relate to it. But it was expected that it will take like some driver's jobs or like some documentation work or something like that. but actually it's, for me, from my perspective, AI helps actually to reduce number of developers because the main thing where it's good at actually right now AI it's in coding. And actually, it cuts the costs for the companies and for startups as well to bring their MVP. You don't need to hire like a senior developer. You can do it actually. You can do your own MVP on your own with coding. Like it's very interesting how AI turns out to be not a tool that will cut low-paid jobs. Let's say it will first cut high-paid jobs actually.
Yeah, no, which is interesting, right? It's going to have a different effect, say, to the Industrial Revolution. We'll see. I mean, it helps me a lot. I use it for some of my admin things, but I do think for the moment, what I do and how I help families, that personal touch and putting people in contact with other families that have been to school, sharing more insightful information, for the moment, AI can't do it for now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not always correct. So you need still to oversee the result, even if you use the knowledge base and all that kind of stuff. But about personalization of education, like, okay, let's imagine my child is visiting and going to school and everything is nice. But what do you recommend? Like, take advantage of these years, so these important years where your personality and educational background is just out to be settled actually. So for children, like what for children and their parents, how to complement, I would say, like the basic education that they listen in school.
Okay, so to do things outside of school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, most kids here do after school activities. Kids here are busy. They have school from 9 until 4, 9 until 5. Then they have music class or they have swim class or football. And some families are really surprised that some of these after-school activities happen, like starts at 8 p.m. Like, what? 8 p.m. in our country that the kids are going to bed. And here they start their extracurricular activities. But I do think when you're here, obviously after-school activities, but I'm more of the type of person that after-school activities every single day, I think is exhausting for children, in my opinion. I like to see them go just to go to the park or just run and use their imagination. But a lot of the time it's this a schedule and it's a tight schedule. I find that as an adult exhausting, and I think for my kids it's exhausting.
I was that kind of kid. I had music classes. I studied mathematics in school with deep knowledge of English as well. I made some fighting sport as well, and basketball, and like I had only one day with free evening, like it was Wednesday, and
you remember
Sunday.
the day.
Yes, I remember the day. And at some point when I finished my music school, I was like, oh my god, I have so many free time. Like, wow, no 3 times solfeggio, music classes, fortepiano, accordion, and all other stuff. I can just do whatever I want. Wow. But I tell me.
No, but do you think it was a good thing for you to have so many activities?
I would say that I can see pros and cons. For me, as a very naughty guy until my 23, I believe, it was good because when you had a lot of free time and a lot of energy, and you're a boy in a not a very good area, it could bring some bad ideas in your head. But
happens to girls too.
Yes. But I mean, like, I don't know actually how it works right now, but I remember just from my experience that boys were a bit more aggressive, like, or something like it was.
Yeah.
In my childhood, for example, it was like less usual to see girls fighting.
Yeah.
But the boys fighting all the time. So I mean, like, it was my childhood. So that's why I believe that there are some pros, but I think that it was hard for me to understand and to start managing my time by myself. I mean, like to set schedule by myself. And this is a very important skill that you need to have in your work and in your personal life, professional life, whatever. Like it's
that you've kind of been
something
directed all of the time.
Yes. It's important thing. I need to here as well. I believe that balance is the word of this podcast today, but I believe that some balance shall be for sure set up. And maybe in the end of our podcast, and Sinead, I hope I pronounced your name properly. It's a very interesting name, by the way, I would say. Do you have Spanish? Do you have Spanish version of this name or
Cyanide?
Cyanide?
No, but the way that they call
my Spanish version is Juan, so I mean, like it's closer.
Better than cyanide. Sounds like a bomb.
I didn't knew that, but okay.
Yeah, no, it's the sounds. It doesn't exist in Spanish, so it's. At the beginning, I used to correct people, and now it's whatever. Yes, and I can tell them, see them thinking, my goodness, what is she called? What's her name? But there you go.
Yeah, that's why I have a Latin America version of my name. When I lived in Latin America, when I tried to say like my name is Eugenio, Evgeny, Jenya. Okay, Juan, just call me Juan. It's okay. Don't worry. I mean, like.
I mean, a lot of kids, especially Asian kids or Chinese kids, they change their names as well when they're here.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
And the last but not the least, actually, let us know. It was very interesting for me because it's the covered area for me. Behind the scene, like what's happening in education, except the noise that I hear from the school, even with being 500 meters from it with the plastic windows. What are plans for development of your own projects this year?
My own project this year, let's see, to maybe feature more podcasts, like yours, to become a little bit more visible. But besides that, Madrid is getting busier, without a doubt. I can see that. And without even my business, I can see it on the street. I can hear lots of different languages. So I'd like to expand my business. My business will grow this year. But then another part, what I would really like to do is share the insights that I have about schools and about education and use those to help to improve some of the schools here. Because I think Madrid's got some great schools. It's got the foundations, but there are areas that could be improved. And that's part of what I would like to do to help. I mean, it sounds very, very grand. I'm going to shape education. No, I'm not. But if I could just get these tiny, tiny little things into schools, I think I could help a lot of the families that move to these schools and the current families at the schools.
That sounds great, and I can actually relate to small improvements. Like I also don't believe like I'm reshaping media landscape of IT industry, but if you can help one person, even one person, to just know more about this education and to understand where to go, where to knock when you have this problem, I believe that this is really great, and I recommend to visit the website. We will put this link of Sinead. I can relate to this. Like of course, you can do like the immigration process and accounting process and tax process as well by yourself. But there is a question like of resources versus impact. And I believe that sometimes it's very important, and specifically in such sensitive topic, it's important to have a person that will take your hand and pass this path through with you, one hand in another, and that will be really helpful for all people that move in.
Oh, because what's interesting, a lot of families that I help have never been to Madrid. It's like they got a map. Like, okay, where am I going to go? I'm going to Madrid. And I'm the person that's helping them with their schools, but then it becomes it's an intense relationship. So that I help them with a lot more, but they've never been, so it's huge. You've got to trust the person that's going to help you.
Yeah, for sure. And don't forget for our listeners, I will just remind, if you're here, please don't forget to subscribe and put any emotions, comments, and also share your experience with the educational system. Like Was your school good actually, and what do you like about it? And were you naughty person as myself or not? So we will wait you in our comments as well. And Sinead, maybe one last question for this podcast, but not the last. I believe we will continue also in some time. I see a lot of books behind you, and maybe some books that you would recommend just like to complete, like this understanding of education or life or something that impressed you recently.
But about Spain,
Whatever. I mean,
at the moment, at the moment, the books that I'm reading is a specific American author, and she's got nothing to do. Well, she's a fantastic writer, so she is about writing.
Let's go here.
Elizabeth Strout. She's fantastic.
Elizabeth Strout.
Olive.
Okay.
I'm just finished Olive Kitteridge, and now I'm on Olive again.
And what do you like about this?
I love fiction. I really enjoy fiction, and she writes so beautifully. And the character Olive is this elderly lady that's been really stuck in her ways, and she was a school teacher, a math teacher. And this is her experience, and she lives in a town in Maine, and she sees all of her ex-students, and it's her life and how she's changing her opinion, her ways of seeing the world.
Sounds incredible. Thank you very much, Sinead.
Thank you so much.
With us.
I really enjoyed my time with you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Igualmente.
Pásalo bien. Buen día.
Buen día.